Hey, check it out. Today we're working on a 2010 Infinity G37 and car up in the air. That can only mean one thing. We're going to be going over real quick the step-by-step instructions of installing air suspension on this platform. So as we can see here, we have the front, rear bags, and rear struts from Airlift. And then what this car is going to be set up on is your standard tank with ports on the back side, so front facing ports, tank rotated, Airlift Performance 3P manifold, and then the single Vire 444C compressors. So I guess real quick, starting from the back side of this car, I'm gonna go over what I did to run the wiring, the battery connections, where we tapped in for the ignition source, and then how we ran the controller. After going through that, I'm gonna go ahead and provide the information and kind of show how to remove the front factory suspension, installing the front airlift, how we're going to go ahead and run our airlines, which is going to be just like that through the wheel well, more than likely underneath the body of this car, up underneath, and back through the rear. So starting back here, kind of just like a rough mock-up of what this trunk step is going to be like. We have our connection for our manifold, the harness, and then these two back here, which is going to be our power and our ground, which connects direct to the single compressor. Now if you do have a second compressor setup, let me know in the comments and I can go ahead with either this vehicle hopefully, or even the R8, give information on how to go ahead and make that connection and set up a dual compressor setup. But for the time being, what we can see through here, these wires running through the back side of this cover. What I did is on this driver side panel, my preference, you're more than welcome to run it through driver or passenger side. Why I did on the driver side is I have to run the ignition wire and controller, preferably on the driver's side, so it made more sense keeping it over here for extra slack if needed. So this cover, there are these factory little clips right here. They're just flathead, so you go ahead and pry, pull, and pop those out. Remove this whole backside cover piece, and then even with this back paneling, you can lift that upwards. What you'll see from there are a few holes, either through the bottom factory, through like this wall, where the original harness runs through, one on the bottom corner, and you do have one in this top left pocket, which I didn't see any reason to have to utilize. So what that looks like though in the back, with the rear seat removed, get a little light in here for this. I removed obviously the bottom seating simply by just pulling this tab and that one over there. When you pull those forward, this whole seat comes up and out. So when you do that, you go ahead and grab a size 14 socket. You have a nut right here, and also on this back corner over here as well, to lift this back upwards. And then you can see right here, my wiring went up and through one of those channels to go ahead and make it through the back. So that being the case, I did run these wires down underneath. You do have that original kind of like, I guess, side cover piece of plastic. This guy right here, all you have to do with this installed, lift upwards, front and back, and it'll give you access to this. I tucked both wires down underneath so it doesn't interfere with where it clips in, to keep it nice and secure. Chased it down under here, going from the rear to the front of the car, and then same thing through this plastic panel as well. Pretty straightforward. Lifted straight up, ran the wires on through, and then kind of the next big steps. If you are needing information on this, we can see the pink, which is our ignition wire, and then the kind of thicker cord, which is the connection for a controller. That ignition source is connected and tapped to one of our fuses back here, just to help identify that. When you remove this bottom panel and this sidewall cover panel off, you have on the back side information on which fuses to what. So the one I tapped it to is going to be right here the 20 amp power socket. So let me go ahead and adjust this lighting a little bit. You can see right here. So should be the 20 amp on here. That's why I use to go ahead and connect it for the ignition source. That way when the car is turned on, obviously our controller gets power, the system gets power. When the car is off, everything shuts off and we don't have anything draining the battery. Something to keep note of, for the controller I ran it back up and behind this steering column, and then the cord sneaking out on this right hand side, giving us access to set the controller up kind of on the vents over here. So with running it through this driver's side from the back, it did give me more than enough slack. That way, if we do need to relocate that controller, or if anything else is needed, we don't want it right here on this top side. If we want it somewhere stashed in this lower center console or something, we do have more than enough line to do so. So all right, so taking a look on the passenger side of the car, I did go ahead and remove the top cover that says battery. It's just two clips. You push forward and remove the top. This is already loose. Once that's removed, there are the circular screws, the same as a trunk, where you go ahead and use like a flathead just to pop them up and remove it. Go ahead and pull this whole cover out. And then looking back here, we do see like the factory harness, the wiring coming through the engine bay, and that goes through the firewall into the cabin itself. That's what I use to feed our ground and our power wire for the system. So I do advise, if you're doing it by yourself, one trick I used was using the airline. In this case, it was a 3/8 airline. I fished it down through that grommet and actually ran the power and the ground into that hose and fished it back out this way through the engine bay to grab access to those two wires. Now, if you do have help, you do have extra hand, you can have someone go ahead and do the same thing as help feed, something sturdy, not string, it'll just kind of tangle up inside. 3/8 airline down to you while you go ahead and run the two wires into it and pull those back out. That being the case too, just to give you a little bit of view on this passenger side, I went and removed the cover from underneath the glove box. And to kind of see what I'm talking about, it is a tight fit under here. Left it so we can kind of see what I'm talking about. The harness right here goes directly up through that grommet and feeds downwards through the side panel. And then same thing on that driver's side. What I did is I removed this piece, this side trim, this one first, this one second, and then have that wire running through the passenger side underneath between the passenger front and passenger rear divider right here. Over, same thing under this guy, up behind, and then we can see it. That's going to be underneath, tucked behind everything, so it doesn't get grabbed by the seatbelt or something, but over, and like I said, back up and through the trunk of the car. So any way that you prefer to run this, these are just the ways that I did it. Like I said, for me, I wanted more slack just in case for the ignition source and the controller itself. As you can tell, for this platform, the wiring does make it all the way through from the back to the front of this. So power connection to the battery. Our location for the ignition source, where we fed for the controller, our access through the car, feeding into the back. So if you do have questions on any of this, please let me know. Drop a comment in this video. What I'm gonna do is go through the parts needed for removing the front suspension, which should be pretty simple and straightforward. I mean, that's what we can always hope, right? For this, it is gonna be the 3 bolts on the top of the strut, which you can see right here, 1, 2, 3. And then on the inside down here, we have some of these little clips. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a flashlight and jump to this side. Got a little bit more lighting. Bam. So we do have some of our connections on this strut, just kind of easy to remove both sides. And then we do have a pinch bolt that goes to the side right here by my finger. This as well. So this one should be a 14. And I believe down here, you can see the top of the strut connects to the arm. And then down here on this little spot, got another right there, bolt right there. That should be a 15. So let me go ahead and get going on this for the front driver and passenger. If there are any corrections with the sizes needed, I'll address that. So I mean, you go ahead and skip forward. It's going to take me a few minutes to do so. So front is removed. It did take just a little bit of time. Bolts got a little bit of age on them, so it was a little bit of a fight to remove those. However, did manage to get the stock, or the original strut that has been on this car, removed. Next we'll be installing the airlift performance front. So what we see here are the sockets and the bolts that were used to remove, and then obviously these are the bolts that came off of the strut or from the assembly to pull it. So what you're gonna need for this one here should be the 12. It's gonna be used to remove 3 bolts from the top of the strut, which on this side's located 1, 2, and then 3 on this passenger side. On the driver's side, a bit more room. We see 1, 2, and then 3. So again, size 12 for that. What I used for here, this is where I have a little bit of correction from what I just mentioned. It's gonna be a 14 that will be used. This bolt right here is the pinch bolt. As you can see right here, we have bottom, top, pinch bolt removed. So that one's gonna be the 14. And then what I did on this one, I'm not entirely familiar with all the G37 platforms, but this one did have this bracket, which is on both the driver and this passenger side, with 2 bolts. I used that same size, just shorter. What I did is I removed that bracket and allowed this to slide down further. You can see right here, there's 1 hole, and underneath is a second. With those 2 removed, it allowed this to drop down lower, giving me the ability to go ahead and bring this down and have some more space to wiggle this guy out. So the last thing, that is where I was wrong on the sizes. The other one that is needed is the 17. The 17 is going to be removing this longer bolt, the nut on the back side, for this bottom portion down here, where this essentially bolts through. So that would be for passenger and driver's side of the car. So did get both sides removed. Straightforward. Again, had to use a little bit more mallet, just kind of tap the bolt on through. I do advise PB blast if you are fighting any of these older bolts, just to break loose. But now essentially it's going to be the steps backwards. So this strut we're going to go ahead and mount back in top hat. I already installed the damper knob. So this will go ahead and go up through the top, through there. We'll wiggle it in from the bottom of this right here. Same situation. It's gonna wedge into the bottom of this bracket right here, the black one, and then reinstall this guy, sorry, the pinch bolt, and then kind of just tap in all of our little grommets for the brake lines. This already came included with a brand new nut. This one was already obviously on the stock suspension. That one also a 12, by the way, but we won't have to use that. Like I said, this one already comes with it, brand new. So this assembly right here, we just mount on to this and then tighten it on up. So let me go ahead and take care of this passenger side, driver's side, and what we'll take a look at next is Once they're installed, how we're gonna run the braided lines. What I mean by that are these that were included with the kit. Braided steel lines, air line, the nylon air line that goes into this side, braided, and then this threads into the bottom of the struts. So we'll look how to route these guys. Kindly tucked back here, just out of the way from the wheel and anything else that might be going on. And then how to safely and securely run the airlines down through under the side and then chase on to the back of the car. So we'll tear into that real quick and see how it looks. So here we have the front installed, top of the strut, everything bolted, clipped back in, have the braided airline. I went and actually installed this into the bag on the backside, threaded in before installing the bag. Reason being, you put the bag in, you're gonna be fighting just to start threading this in. The last thing you wanna do is chance cross threading it or not have it in all the way before you start tightening it. And then you do have pretty limited room on the backside of this to even try and start snugging that up into the strut. So I do advise putting the braided airline in on both struts and then installing the strut itself. But that is what this passenger side looks like. Driver's side is the same. So that being the case, moving into the rears, I've already went ahead and got the rear removed. So taking a look, this is what yours should look like. Top of the strut, you have 2 bolts at the very top, a little hard to see, kind of towards the back inside, and that's for the other side as well, towards the inside of the car, and one right here closer to the outside body of the vehicle. Bottom of this is just gonna be the single bolt itself. This is a fixed welded nut onto this factory strut, so you just have to break this bolt loose, pull it out, and then the factory spring that sits in this bucket. I advise working on this one right here rather than the one in the back. If you mess with that, it is going to toy with your alignment, and the last thing you want is your car to be dancing on the road. Regardless, I do advise, after modifying the suspension on your car, coilovers, air suspension, I do advise getting alignment anyways, but just to make it easier to get there safe, don't mess with that one in the back, remove the one in the front. So for the removal, I would suggest a long extension. You're gonna need a size 12 that removes the 2 nuts from the top of the strut. And then for the bottom down here, we should be just using 17. So again, you look at the removal of this, it is fixed. Do not try and just throw a bigger size. 17 doesn't even work for the back. So if you try using this, you're just gonna be struggling. So 17 for this guy, pull straight out from the bottom, and then this whole strut will just drop and easily remove. The spring itself that sits in the bucket, you are gonna have to kind of wedge 17 size wrench angled outwards this way. On the back side, there's gonna be this nut to the bolts. So use the wrench, tilt it outwards towards the back of the car. That'll let you start breaking this loose and remove it, and then I would just use either ratchet or impact to go ahead and back this out. Once you do remove this, it will allow you to start kind of wiggling this downwards. Use a little bit of force. You can push this down pretty far, just enough to go ahead and wedge this out. You do see it's nothing crazy at the bottom. This will come out with it. What you're trying to do is get this spring within the bucket down far enough to wedge out from this piece. It's a pretty long, mounting, I guess, rubber bracket at the top. So just to keep in mind, you can have a friend or someone help pull that down while you pull the spring out. Might make it a little easier and faster, but that is the process for the rear. Just like the front, not a whole lot of tools needed. 17s, 12s, It's pretty standard. So let me go ahead and clean all of this up, get the driver's side taken care of, and then we'll see what the rear is gonna look like. It is a bit more work to take care of. These are gonna be the replacements for the springs. This is already kind of assembled. I'm gonna have to remove these bolts that are holding this top pad down. We take a look inside, and it's gonna be on both of these. There is a threaded port right here. With your kit, you should have 2 fittings. These ones are 3/8 because that's the airline it's running. Yours may vary as like 1/4 inch, but we are gonna have to go and thread these into the bucket or into the top of this, basically. So once this is in, threaded and facing outwards, then we can reassemble this top piece. Now, that being the case, do note there is this hole right here on the top, and also one at the bottom. It does look like, I'm going to just take this over there, and we're going to need a strut as well. These are both universal, so it just says R for rear. Do pay attention when you install the fronts. It does say FL and FR front left. This side, which is your driver. FR front right, which will be your passenger. Pay attention to that. For the rear, make sure, yep. These will work out regardless of sides. And here's this. So, I'll give you a little bit of a comparison between the two. Strut looks like, you know, a little longer than the stock, but don't let that fool you. This should put you on the ground because we have this gigantic spring and this tiny bag. So we take a look in this too real quick. This bucket does not have a hole in the center for this to drill into. We will need a bit to go ahead, and there should be a assembly provided to go ahead and get this dead center, to drill the hole through the bottom, to run the bolt upwards into the bottom of this bag assembly. And then we will also have a special tool that we're gonna have to do the same for this top to secure this into this upper perch. See how there's nothing up here? That was the whole point of this from factory. So we take a look here just so you guys kind of see, because I'm not going to be able to walk through the process. It's applied centering spacer with a template, 1332 size diameter. That's going to be for that rear bucket. And then this is the assembly I'm talking about. Some of the other tools is the nutsert tool. You have to drill through that upper top part and follow these instructions to go ahead and get this assembled. So another look, top plate, top mounting bracket, fitting, all that compressed together, bolted up. That's what we'll be working on right now. So I'm gonna get the driver's side to look like this, get all taken care of, and then show you guys how it all turned out. All right, so rear suspension is installed. All the steps pretty much backwards. So rear strut, the 2 bolts at the top, this one right here at the bottom, obviously. And then with the new suspension, the airlift, I'm assuming with the other ones too, it should include a brand new nut for the back of the bolt. So that locked in, bag assembly put together. We got the fitting mounted as well for the airline, facing towards the inside of the car because that's where we're running the airlines through. And then also mounted at the bottom. That way it stays secured and locked in. So I've also went ahead and ran the airlines for passenger rear, driver rear, and then the front as well. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to do this. For this car, what I did is leaving a little bit of slack for this braided line, but obviously tucked back and out of the way for the wheels. It's ran down, zip tied with what we have accessible to use to secure it. We made our connection, and then you able to see this, we have a kind of like a factory area for all the hard lines running through, like a little channel. I actually followed that all the way back for this through and then chased it up and over behind. And already got this wheel on, but same thing. I have that braided line kind of ran back in behind the frame right there, out of way from anything once this airs out and compresses. And then airline at an angle down top side of this, like the frame of the car, and then it follows that same channel all the way back, so it's away from any heat, anything that might crimp or pinch it. And then same with this, this back ran over, up above, and then through one of the grommets going to the trunk. So all of them running through that same grommet that we didn't use anything that's going to be messing with where the tire is, the spare in here, not having to put holes through the car, thankfully. And it's kind of a quick little setup, not close to what this is going to look like, but obviously wanted to get everything kind of tied in. Already tested all this. Tank pressure held, which is good. Bags, everything was sitting at about 100 psi, no drop or change in the last few hours, so that's always a plus. So something I do advise, if you have the car up in the air and that's what you're working on, go ahead and probably pressurize everything. Make sure, you know, the power to the compressor kicks on, you don't have leaks in any of your fittings to the tank, and anything running in the manifold, and then obviously the air lines running to the braided steel lines to the bags. Otherwise, it's going to be a mission taking some of this stuff out just to, like, you know, tighten one of the fittings back here. So that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and get the wheels back on this car and get on the ground and then finish up the trunk setup. All right, so here we are, all finished up with the install for the G37 with the airlift performance kit and 3P management. This is a lower ride height setting, by the way. We are running 70s in the rear and then in the front 100. It does recommend in the rear for this anywhere from 70 to 85 and 115 in the front. But that's all locked in, good to go. Do have the trunk set up, looking pretty decent. We have kind of like a aftermarket mat right here, and what I did is 2 separate panels. If you're trying to find ideas of how to do this, I sectioned out one board for the back that is individual and all wrapped. That way it allows you to have access over here to open up these 2 corners if needed, and if you go ahead and pull out that section, it'll give you access to your stock spare and all your tools and accessories. Then there is a separate panel back here where everything is mounted to. Manifold on the back right side, single compressor. Mounted directly to it is the water trap. And then off to the left hand side for now, we have the pressure release valve and a straighter valve connection just in case you got to manually fill up the tank for any reason. I did leave it to where there is no space, so if I have to go ahead and shift this manifold to the center, I go ahead and put a second compressor on this right hand side. So looking pretty good. Kind of see it from the front as well. Yeah, that is it. That is the full install of getting this car up in the air and with the ability to be on the ground. So again, if there's any questions or need any more information in regards to the wiring, anything it might be, please feel free to leave a comment below, and more than happy to help out. So stay tuned, see what we'll be working on next, if it's going to be something with the R8 or potentially another car install. If there's something you want to see or suggest I try working on, please let me know.